Okay, here we are. I just had to film in front of this backdrop because it's the coolest thing. This is the video for Thursday for my students. I'm still not still stuck in DC and can't get back to class. We're going to be looking at now the source number 7 and 8 in this Shiur. And what I'd like you to do is in source number 7 and 8, we're going to learn the Psukim and the Gemara together. I would like you to send me a text message of a summary when you're done. And then what I would like you to do after you've sent this, after you sent the text message, I'd like you to figure out how you could apply the lessons of this sugya, of these psukim and this Gemara. I'd like you to figure out how you could apply it to the sugya of and the machlokas between the Rabbanan and the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, if Shema has to be said as it's written, or Shema could be said in any language. Okay, so let's look at source number 7. We're going to look at the psukim. These psukim come right after the Jews have crossed the sea. They've crossed the sea and they have just been miraculously saved from the Egyptians. And the pasuk says as follows: So Tikach Miriam Hanaviyah, Achos Aaron, Esataf biyada v'tetzena kol nashim acharah b'tufim u'b'machalos. That Miriam, with various musical instruments, led the women out to sing Shira, to say praise to God for the wonderful miracle that they had. And she went ahead and led them out to say praise. V'tan lehem Miriam shiru Hashem ki go'agah sus v'rachmo rama v'yam. Right, that she brought them out to say praise to Hashem, and talked about how Hashem is a master of war, and how Hashem had defeated the Egyptians. And that is the end of what we call a Parsha. It's not like the Parsha Shavua that we've talked about is a misnomer. This is the end of really the subject matter of the description. And now Bnei Yisrael goes ahead and they travel. So that's one story, is the victory at the sea. And watch what happens immediately after the victory at the sea. What's the next story that the Torah tells us? It says as follows: V'yisa Moshe es Yisrael miyam suf v'yetzu el midbar shur v'yelchu shloshas yamim b'midbar v'lo matzu mayim. Moshe takes them from the sea, right, where they were just saved, and they go out to the desert, what's called Midbar Shur, to the desert of Shur, and they went 3 days. Now they're traveling for 3 days. They have some supplies with them. They were just made immensely wealthy with the gold and the jewels that washed up on the shore in Egypt. And they go out, and they go out, and for 3 days they travel away from the Yam Suf. Now they have no fears of the Egyptians chasing them. They are truly free people. They are truly wealthy people. But they travel 3 days without any water. Okay? Vayavo marsa v'le'achulishtos mayim yimara ki marim heim al kein krashmo mara. Now all of a sudden, after 3 days of no water, it's not so dangerous, because after 3 days of no water, they have supplies with them, but after 3 days you can imagine the people start getting nervous, and then all of a sudden what do? They come upon water, and they're all excited because here are 3 million thirsty people who had no access to water, but now they do have this water. So what do? They go to the water, they take a sip of the water, and it's bitter. And now the people come to Moshe Rabbeinu and they say, what can we drink? Right? And they start complaining to Moshe Rabbeinu. These people who 3 days before were so thankful over the salvation that they had at the at the sea, and they were so thankful. Now all of a sudden 3 days go by and they are bitter, resentful, complaining individuals. Okay, now, so what's the solution to this? Right? What's the solution to the problem? So they're given water. But listen to what happens. And this is where we're going to switch to source number 8 now. The Gemara in Bava Kama says as follows: Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Asar Tekanos Tikein Ezra. Ezra, we have a book of Ezra in Tanakh. Ezra was the leader of the Jewish people during the time period between the first and second Beis HaMikdash. During the Purim story, Mordechai really wasn't the leader of the Jewish people. He was one of 120 leaders. And the leader of those 120 people, who are called the Anshe Knesset Agdola, was someone by the name of Ezra HaSofer, Ezra the scribe. Ezra the Sofer, who was the leader of the people, eventually led the people back to Yerushalayim to build the second Beis HaMikdash. And Ezra instituted 10 laws. These were his ideas, under the power that the Torah gives the rabbis to institute laws. Ezra instituted 10 laws. We're going to go through one of them. And what was this? One of these 10 laws? Asar tikanos tiken Ezra shekorin b'mincha b'Shabbos v'korin b'shini v'chamishi. Okay, so Ezra instituted a law that they should read from the Torah every Shabbat and every Monday and Thursday. They should read from the Torah. Okay? Right? And that's what we do, right? Every Shabbat we read from the Torah, and every Monday and Thursday morning we read from the Torah. This was Ezra's idea. Now the Gemara really doubts whether this was really Ezra's idea. Where does that doubt come from? Gemara says, "V'shahayu korin v'sheni v'chamishi Ezra tikein." This idea of reading on Monday, the Torah on Monday and Thursday, was that really Ezra's idea? V'hayami kara havim itikadna. Right? It was already instituted a long time before. When? So the Gemara quotes our pasuk, "Vayilonu shloshes yamim b'midbar v'lo matzu mayim," that they went 3 days in the desert and they didn't find any water. Dorshi Rishimos Amru Ein Mayim El Torah. Right? The people that translate the Torah, so you can translate the Torah to take it literally, that there was no water, but what they describe it as is these people, they describe it as that there was no Torah, that Mayim, water, really is Torah, and they didn't have any Torah. Right? So now we're going to skip a couple of lines, and it says, Keva Shahachlu Shloshas Yamim Below Torah Nolu. Right? So so once they went 3 days without any Torah, right? Meanwhile, they had left the Yam Suf, they had left Har Sinai, they left for 3 days without any Torah, and now they were at this position where 3 days without any Torah, all of a sudden they're complaining against Hashem. So what do? So, right? So it says, Amdu Neviim Shebeinehem V'tiknu Lahem Shiukorim B'Shabbos U'Mafsikin B'Echad Shabbos U'Korim B'Sheni U'Mafsikin Shlishi U'Revi V'Korim B'Chamishi U'Mafsikin Erev Shabbos Kedei She'ilonu Gimel Yamim Below Torah. Right, so that what did they institute? The prophets among them instituted that they shouldn't have 3 days without any Torah reading. Right, so in other words, they read the Torah on Shabbat, then they read the Torah, they skip a day, they read the Torah on Monday, they go Tuesday and Wednesday without reading the Torah, then they go on Thursday they read the Torah, they take a day break on Friday and Shabbat. That way, there's no such thing as 3 days again without any Torah reading. Now, what's the idea here, that they went 3 days without any Torah reading? You could imagine that it's not that they needed to actually read Torah. They didn't need to read the Torah like at laning and Kriat Hatorah in front of a congregation. They could have just instituted that they learn Torah, that they study Torah. So what's the idea that they had to read from the Torah? And this is really the idea, what we say of what Kriat Hatorah is all about, of what the idea of Kriat Hatorah is, that they needed to re-experience Har Sinai, right? They had to have that Har Sinai moment again, right? That's the idea. That's what they had to have. They had to re-experience Har Sinai. That every 3 days they had to re-experience the phenomena of Har Sinai, right? And that's what the institution of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Nevi'im at his time was. That Bnei Israel had 3 days, 3 days without that Sinai experience of that revelation of God at Har Sinai. Without that revelation, so therefore they started to rebel, they started to complain against Moshe. So what did the Jewish people do? Right? So the prophets instituted that they should have a recreation. And that's the idea of Kriat Hatorah. We're going to stress in the next video that Kriat Hatorah is a recreation of the Sinai moment. Right? And that's the idea. That's what Har Sinai is. So they instituted that they couldn't go 3 days without a remembrance of what the Har Sinai moment was. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is text me a summary of that. I'd like you to spend about 10 or 15 minutes thinking to yourselves how you can apply that to the debate between the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi as to whether or not Shema can be said in any language, or whether it has to be said in the language that it was written in Lashon HaKodesh. Have a great day.